Howdy, 8th grade. Today we will be looking at how to solve some compound inequalities. All this means compound means kind of like complicated, more than one at once. So we're going to be solving more than one inequality at the same time. It's going to be awesome. Sometimes we use the words and or in these. And if I'm using the math terms and or, I'll make sure I write them all capital. So these are going to be the math versions. And if I just write and or lowercase, this is the English versions. So if it's all capital, we're thinking this is the math word and, which means a lot. If it's lowercase, we're thinking the English word and, which is kind of boring because math is cooler. So looking in here, what we want to do is first kind of get an example so that we can look at what we want. So if I want to look at all real numbers greater than 1 and less than 4. So this one I'm actually going to use the lowercase and here because it's going to mean the same thing in English as in math. So if you're just hearing you want to know all real numbers that are greater than 1 and less than 4, what's that going to look like? Well, the way we're going to write that with math is saying that we're going to use a variable, first off, to express our numbers. X tends to be the standard there. So we have x, and we want it to be greater than 1. So I'm hoping we remember how to write that. And, which I'm going to use the math one for, and x is less than 4. And this is exactly how you would write this top part into kind of a math sentence or equation. So if we want to graph this, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our number line, graphing on a number line like this. Let's put 0, 5's there. So I know that x has to be greater than 1, so I'm going to draw a circle at 1, less than 4, circle at 4. If it's greater than 1, it's going this way. If it's less than 4, it's going that way. But it needs to be both. And means it needs to be both, so it can only be where both of these lines are. So what we're going to end up doing is I'm going to erase these lines here. And because it can only be in the spot, oh, didn't mean to erase that. It can only be in the spot where both the lines are. We're just going to draw one line between both of these circles, and that's how we would graph that. So if I wanted to say, for example, let's talk about some hurricanes. The hurricane winds go from 75 miles per hour to 200 miles per hour. So if they go from 75 to 200, that means they can be 75 or 200, but they can't be less than 75 or more than 200. So what we're going to do is we're going to write that x has to be greater than or equal to 75. If it's less than 75, it's not really a hurricane. But this does say that it could be 75. It goes from 75 to 200. It also says that it can't be above 200, so I'm going to write and x is less than or equal to 200. And this is how I would write this English sentence in a mathy way. I think the math one's more fun. So we're going to, one more time, graph this onto our number line. And I'm going to start at 0 and go up by 25s. 50, 75, 100, 125, 150, 175, 200. A couple more just for fun. So we're going to start at 75, draw my circle here, and also 200, draw my circle there. So this, right here, we see the sign has the line underneath it, which means we're going to have a closed circle. This also has a line underneath it, which means we're going to have a closed circle. And we need to be both this way of this dot and this way of this dot. So x needs to be bigger than the 75 and less than the 200. So what we're going to do with that is fairly simply, we're just going to connect our dots again. By doing that, this is, oh, that's the eraser still. This is going to show us all the points where the hurricane wind speeds could be, and that's going to be in this area right here, windy. So we can keep going with this. I want to show you guys a couple where we have or statements, because ors are a little bit more complicated. So if I have an or, a lot of times it's going to be a little strange looking, but I think we'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. So if I want to know what all numbers either greater than 9 or less than 3. Again, this is an English sentence, so we're just going to have the lowercase or there. But the way we would write this in math is when we're talking about a number, we need a variable. Let's use y because we used x last time. So y is going to be greater than 9, or, capital for the math one, y is going to be less than 3. So let's look at what this means. If I have a number line here, let's put 0, that was close, 9 goes all the way there. So my 3 point, that would be 2. I will one day learn to count. My 3 point would be right here. So I'll draw a circle there. My 9 point is right here. So I'm going to start with y is greater than 9. There's no equal sign there, so it's going to be an open circle. And greater is that way. Then this says or y is less than 3. So y is less than 3 would be this way. And just like that, we're done. So that was pretty easy. So for or statements, you just put both the arrows on there, and then you leave it. You're good to go. So I want to show you guys why we need a difference between and or. So we're going to start off by saying, for this example, we'll do x is greater than 3 and x is less than 2. So if I draw out my number line here, let's do white again for the number line. 0, 5, -5. So I have x has to be greater than 3. 1, 2, 3 is right here. And x is less than 2. I told you guys I would use the capital and. Let me do that. And x is less than 2. So what we're going to have here is 2 is right here. So I'm going to start by x is greater than 3 would go this way. X is less than 2 would go this way. But and means, so when I see and, I need both arrows. So if I see and, I need both arrows. There's nowhere on here that has both arrows, which means that my final answer would be this empty graph, which means there are no solutions. There are no numbers that are both greater than 3 and less than 2, which makes a little bit of sense. Let's look at or and see what happens when we do something weird with or. So let's try x is less than 5 or x is greater than 3. So if I look at this on my number line, 0, 5, 10, -5 there. I'm going to start with x is greater than 3. So I'm going to draw this 3 here and an arrow going this way. I also have x is less than 5, arrow here, going that way. So because I have my or, which I forgot to put in capital again, so because I have my or, that means I need one arrow. So the entire, no matter where I pick on here, I can pick any point, it will have an arrow on top of it, which means that my final answer would be, if I draw this again, this. So because we have arrows covering the whole thing, there would be all numbers as a solution. No matter what you pick, you're either going to be less than 5 or greater than 3. So all numbers is going to be our solution here. Just like that, we are done. So that's how we do that. I will see y'all in class tomorrow. If you could do some of the lesson practice for me, at least the first 5 problems there. So down through E would be great, and we will be good to go. I'll see y'all in class.